Grayskull is a fan podcast exploring the vast worlds of He-Man and She-Ra. Join Sean Scavarna and Matthew Duke as they discuss the history and mystery of Eternia and Etheria, diving deep into all incarnations of Masters of the Universe.
Hey, you know who's back? It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Now that you know, let's go. Get ready for the show. It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 5 of L.O.G on MYP. This is the mini-series where myself, Matthew Duch, and Curtis Ackerman talk everything about the Mike Young Productions He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon series, starting with episode 1, going all the way to episode 39. Today's episode is Sky War. This is written by Michael Reeves. It was directed by Gary Hartel. And this originally aired on September 27th, 2002. Featuring first appearances of Buzz Off, Hawk, and Stingrad. Curtis.
I don't know if it bothers you or not, but you got some sort of noise going on in the background. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're probably just hearing my washer. It's in the spin cycle right now.
Okay. Are you okay with that being through the episode, or?
It should be. I can pause it. So, Curtis, what did we think about Buzz Off's redesign?
I actually like the redesign. I was never a huge fan of the original Buzz Off head. I liked the character, but the head was kind of weird. Especially if you don't have like the little, I don't know what you call it, the hat on the original
figure.
That
little helmet thing.
Yeah, like if you take that off, it really looks odd. I think the redesign is good. I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, they want more Wasp instead of Bumblebee.
Yeah, his attitude leaves a little bit to be desired. But as far as the design, I think the design is cool.
Yeah. I like their design. I liked his buddy Stingrad, like, you know, the whole colony thing, all the bees. It works so well. I like them giving them.
I like that Stingrad's bigger than him too. Like Buzz Off doesn't have to be the brute, you know, he's the leader, but he doesn't have to be like the big one. So I thought that was kind of neat.
And I liked how they didn't like automatically make him, like, he doesn't show up in this episode and they're like, hello, Buzz Off, you are one of the new masters. You know, like they've got again, we're doing this story progression that we touched on last, where they're dropping these little things and people are, you know, slowly coming in or whatever. But, you know, and I like that, you know, you never thought about it, but yeah, like the avians and the andrenids living in the Mystic Mountains, they got to share similar roots. There might not be, you know, there's some shades of gray in the MYP series that really flesh it out as a world, you know, where, yeah, like we're all on the good side, but that doesn't mean we can't have our own little disputes or whatever, you know.
Well, and you know, keep in mind that we're coming off of this era of peace where there's been no big bad. There's not been somebody for everybody to kind of group around and say, okay, this is our enemy. And now they're trying to do that, and they're telling Buzz Off and that you know, Skeletor is this guy that they need to kind of team up against. And Buzz Off's like, man, I haven't seen this Skeletor. I haven't had any problems with this Skeletor. If he shows up, we're just going to take care of business. We don't need you. Which is, you know, I mean, it's kind of a reasonable way for him to think, being is that he's not encountered him yet and he hasn't had problems. So why are your problems my problems? You know, kind of, we'll deal with that when the time comes, is his attitude.
Yeah, he's like a insectoid Adam from the beginning.
Yeah, so. Kind of, yeah.
But yeah,
and he really has almost a villain mentality. Like he's not mean, Right. But he has this like, hey, if basically if you lose to Skeletor, then you were too weak. Like basically the strong will prevail.
Right.
And so if you need alliances, then you've got a problem.
Right.
Like,
Because we've been fine this whole time without alliances.
Yeah, he even says
that's
something like alliances are for the weak.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's and it's especially being there in 2002, coming off Filmation, everyone's buddies right off the bat, or
Mhm.
those few characters where they were villains first, weren't
Mhm.
really villains, but like it was kind of refreshing to see, like, oh no, like he can have a little bit of a different viewpoint. He can,
Mhm.
we can still get to where he's a valued member of the team, but it doesn't just need to be the instant thing. Like they are playing the long game here, and it's
Mhm.
refreshing at this point.
Yeah.
So our summary for the episode: we got tensions rising due to the unresolved trade disputes between the Avions and the Andrenids. Skeletor takes advantage of this and gets them into almost an all-out war. They're right on the brink of it by staging attacks. As He-Man and Teela rush to try and stop them, Skeletor gets a hold of the Andrenid supply of ambrosia, which grants super strength and powers to anybody who eats it. And oh no, we got head shaking already. What an
Yeah.
interesting
I,
episode.
I don't know about the whole super honey aspect. Like, it's just,
Nectar of the gods, baby.
I don't know. It's such a weird thing that, like, they make this stuff that all of a sudden is super powerful, and Skeletor he knows enough about it to know that it can make him
Well,
powerful. He can have this, but he's not pursued it before, and yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just odd,
we'll
and
definitely get
somehow
into
it doesn't make Buzz off and his race super powered to where they can beat everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It's a weird concept, but go ahead.
We'll
I'll
definitely
lay
get
back
into
for
some ambrosia talk here as we
Okay.
progress. This does not work out the way Skeletor planned it to, as it turns out that ambrosia is toxic to anybody who is not an Andrenid, and thus enabling He-Man to prevent the Sky War as it's about to start by essentially sacrificing himself if he was anybody other than He-Man.
Mhm.
The both sides, Buzzoff and Stratos, realize that they do need to work together, and that Skeletor is a bigger threat than Buzzoff previously realized, and they come to an agreement to work together.
Yeah.
This, I mean, we can just jump. You want to jump right into our ambrosia talk, and we'll just break her
We
down.
can do whatever you want. I've got a lot of feelings on this episode, and they're not
Okay.
all good ones. So,
Okay.
However you want to start, let's just get this ball rolling.
I would. Well, let me preface this by saying this was definitely a so-so episode for me when it first aired. I mean, you've got the coolness of seeing Buzzoff first appearance. You get to see his people. But overall, it wasn't a huge winner for me. And actually revisiting it, I was surprised at how much better it was than I remembered it. Namely, the animation. Now, the animation has been good throughout this series so far, but for some reason, watching this episode today, this episode seemed like a bump up for the animation, and I'm not sure exactly why. But there's a lot of good action. There's a lot of fluid scenes in it. Like I was really digging the animation throughout this one, especially. Okay.
Cool. I mean, there's definitely I will say I noticed in this episode, and even last episode, that we've gotten to a point where there's less of the weapon spinning,
Yep.
kind of, in the air theatrics.
Oh.
It's more kind of real fighting and maneuvers, and it's gotten better.
You know what it might be now that you mention that? Because another thing they really overused in those first episodes were like like the background characters would be in shadow, so
Mhm.
like they didn't have to color them.
Yeah.
They did a lot of that, and I can't. I'm thinking now. I'm wondering if this was where they stopped doing that as much. So maybe that's why it seemed more vibrant to me.
Maybe.
But yeah,
It does seem like there's a difference in how they're doing it though at this point. Like
right. They're
they're
finding
not
their own thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I understand what you're saying. Like when with the first episode / movie, whatever you want to call it, the first
Yep.
3, they were kind of maybe borrowing from some other stuff that was popular at the time, or kind of okay, how do we make this to where people are
Mhm.
going to like it? And now they're falling into their rhythm and their style and what they're going to do. So you can definitely see that it's starting to change.
Yep. So yeah, we got right off the bat, we got Buzz off. That's the other thing. Like right off the bat, here's Buzz off. Like
Mhm.
it's not even one of the buildings. Just like here he is. He's existed. He's existed this whole time. And I like that where you don't need to spend an episode with the origin of Buzz off because Stratos has always known Buzz off. He's one of
Mhm.
the leaders of the Andrenids.
Mhm.
Um, and I like that. Like I like origins too, but not every character needs a long drawn out origin. You know,
Okay.
I will eventually find a topic that Curtis wants to talk about here.
Okay. Can I just jump in?
I'm waiting for.
Okay.
I keep trying to bait you, and I can't get to anything going here.
It's
So I'm hitting on the
freaking
wrong
Tila, man. Like she bugging the crap out of me. So we had this whole thing at the beginning with Stratos and Buzz off and this going on, and then they kind of leave to go do their thing, and they Buzz off saying like I don't need an alliance, I'm good, and Stratos kind of tells him that hey, you don't understand, like this is important, and then finally gives up, and he's like okay, what kind of throws his hands up like it is what it is. And then
Well,
we
it's
go
kind of just real
Go ahead.
quick on the
Yeah.
Stratos point. I also liked how we're talking about Buzz off flaws, but
Yeah.
Stratos too kind of comes off as condescending and like, well, you don't know Skeletor,
Right.
like we know
Yeah.
Skeletor, and Buzz off was like, bro.
Well,
like,
part of that also might be the Sean Connery accent where he just sounds very proper and British, like he's
right. That's
so,
what I like that
yeah.
we have two heroes having conflict,
Yeah.
but I don't hate either of them. Like
Yeah.
it's really well done.
So they kind of do their thing, and then all of a sudden you get into now Tila talking shit about Adam again, and oh well, you wouldn't know because you're always running from a fight or doing this and that, and just doing her normal Tila's a jerk thing. And Adam kind of throws his hands up. He's like, whatever, and just kind of storms off. And then Randor comes over and she gives a half-hearted, oh, well, I'm sorry if, kind of I overstepped, it just, he irritates me. And then Randor jumps in and he's
Randor's
like,
right
oh,
there
no,
with her, dude.
I kind of feel the same way. And I understand what you're saying. And meanwhile, you see, like, if you go and watch that scene, like Tila's talking shit, Randor's talking shit, and right in between them, for a step behind, is Man at Arms. And Man at Arms doesn't say anything. He says jack squat about the whole thing, knowing that in reality, Adam is doing more than anybody, and he's doing exactly what he needs to be doing. And I get it that for whatever reason, they feel like they can't tell the secret. Like the secret's so important.
Right.
They don't really explain why. They said in episode 2, well, it could be dangerous for your family and loved ones if the bad guys found out. But how are the bad guys going to find out if you just tell your loved ones? Like, do you not trust your loved ones? Do you not trust Randor and Tila to not go running off and telling Skeletor? Like, I don't see the danger in telling them. So this whole thing is starting to get really annoying. And she just keeps poking and poking. And now Randor's poking. And Man at Arms is sitting there knowing that Adam is dealing with, I mean, he's still a 16-year-old kid. Like this guy's got, hormones and emotions and all this kind of stuff. And he's trying to do the best he can. And meanwhile, these two are just crapping all over him. Sorry, I had to censor myself there. They're crapping all over him. And Man at Arms doesn't say anything. Not like, oh, well, Adam's been doing these other things and you just don't understand. Like he is doing his part and he, You guys need to ease up on him. He says nothing. And it's starting to really bug the crap out of me. It really is.
So really, Man-at-Arms is a jerk.
I think they're all jerks, really. I think the sorceress is a jerk for telling him that he can't share this secret with his loved ones. Like, I don't get the harm. Like, they're in the palace. They're protected by the masters of the universe. It's not like the same as Superman protecting his secret identity because, you know, like Lois and Jimmy and all these people, his family, are living out in the world where they can be attacked by anybody that finds out his secret identity. This is Adam living in a palace protected by the masters of the universe. If Skeletor is going to fight these folks, he's going to fight them anyways. And if he's going to come at him, he's going to come at the palace anyway. So I don't see the harm in sharing it. And as we go along, it makes less and less sense that we have to keep this secret. And it's frustrating and irritating that they're just poking at Adam like all the time, and nobody is doing anything to stand up for Adam. And I'm just thinking, like, in the psyche of that kid, that 16-year-old kid, like, you're really messing with this kid, you know? Like, this not something that it's not conducive to a healthy environment to grow up in, regardless of if he was He-Man or not. Just the fact that you're telling this kid constantly that he's not good enough it's irritating, you know? So there you go. That's my first rant. I've got more, but that's my first.
Wow. So I am still nowhere near the level of annoyed by Tila as you are. I'll come right out and say that. I think in these early episodes, they're definitely really trying to get the status quo set up. And that is Randor disappointed, Tila disappointed, Man-at-Arms going to be the guy that's, you know, it is odd now that you pointed out that he didn't stick up for Adam, because usually that is Man-at-Arms thing. Like, hey, give him a chance. Like, you know, I'm sure the Prince thing, you know, like even to Randor in the original series, he is more that guy that, you know, he's going to at least try and interject a good word. So that I will say
even
is
in the first three, he could have even said something like along the lines of Adam had to go to Grayskull to get help from the sorceress so that she could send a champion to help us. You know,
right.
Like that alone doesn't give away the secret that is so important for us to keep, you know, but it still would explain why he's leaving the battlefield and maybe prevent some of this. But, you know, he just doesn't say anything. Yeah. Anyway.
Here's what annoyed me, especially. So we've got the beginning. Sorceress has that line about the secret identity.
Mm-hmm.
Courage of Adam is basically all set around the secret identity.
Mm-hmm.
And now here again, I'm at the point myself where I'm just like, okay, we get it. Like, and I love the secret identity, but I hate how in these early episodes they had to like really try to hammer home a reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it probably would have worked better if they had just, you know, left it. You know, some things are better left unanswered or not like completely spelled out. So if you just,
I don't even think they're trying to give you a reason for it. I think they're just
no, they are, because they keep doing these.
They're hitting
lines
it over and over again that it is a thing, but I don't think they explain why why it needs to be a thing.
Just that half heart. That's what I'm saying. Like they don't even dive deep enough into it to go like there. It's just that same thing. Well, your loved ones, and it's like, look, either just roll with the secret identity being a thing and don't really address it, or really get into the psyche of it. Which, in my mind, longtime listeners have heard me get on the soapbox before. In my mind, it's more about Adam being able to still be Adam and not having to deal with the pressure of being He-Man all the time. To me, that's more where I think you should go with the secret identity thing rather than the loved ones in danger. Like
I just think if you're going to do the secret identity thing, you don't have to crap on the secret identity. Like
that's what I'm saying. Like
you don't see people like talking crap about Bruce Wayne constantly. You know, like how much of how come this millionaire isn't or billionaire isn't out there fighting crime? Like they don't do that. They just like, that's not his place. He's a billionaire.
Right.
Like It's not the prince's place to be out on the front line. That's not his place.
Yeah.
But it's just they just keep hammering it home.
That's what I'm saying.
And
I think in this series, it definitely would have been better if it just been, it's a thing, like just roll with it. Just the, it's just one of the conceits of the
Sheila
show.
can't even be on screen without talking crap. Like that, like she has no character. There's no reason for her existing in this series if she's not talking crap.
That's not true, because
Okay.
when He-Man shows up on the scene and needs her help, now that's a whole different Teela
we
there.
see that here. So yeah, we can. So before that though, so let's backtrack a little bit. So we see this going on in the palace. This whole thing that I just ranted about, and then Buzz Off's kind of flying home.
Yep.
Stratos is flying home, and meanwhile they start getting attacked by the other, but it's not really the other. It's Skeletor kind of sending these gargoyles, that are under the power of Beastman, that can make themselves look like whatever they want. Or
Evil Lyn,
Evil
Lyn cast a spell on them to make them appear.
So Buzz Off thinks that Stratos's group is attacking him, and Stratos thinks that Buzz Off's group's attacking him. So we see that's kind of going on. Meanwhile, at the palace, Man-at-Arms and Randor are talking about this area where there's kind of some attacks that maybe could be going on, and that maybe there's a chance that Skeletor is utilizing these caverns and stuff. And we see in the background, Adam is eavesdropping. Why is Adam eavesdropping? Because Adam is trying to figure out what's Randor and Man-at-Arms talking about. Is there a way that I can use this to my advantage to try to help out and be good and be enough in my father's eyes, in everybody's eyes, because he's got this damaged psyche at this point that he's got to eavesdrop and then take chances. So he runs off half-cocked without talking to Randor, without talking to Man-at-Arms of where he's going.
Yep.
And he enlists Teela's help as He-Man now.
Yep.
To both go off half-cocked, just going out into potential danger without letting anybody know where they're going. And Teela doesn't at any point go, wait a minute, this is wrong. I need to tell my father. I need to tell somebody that we're going out here into danger.
Let's go, He-Man.
She's just like, okay, let's go. And is right along with him, and they just go off into danger together. So that's,
I know.
that's
I'm loving it. We're right back in the wheelhouse here. He-Man, Teela, Battle Cat, gonna go save some people, stop a sky war.
I get his part, because inside that big giant He-Man body lives a broken, damaged, mentally ill child that is being tortured on the daily by his friends and family. So I get why he's doing it. Her jumping into danger without letting anybody know where she's going makes no sense to me.
It's He-Man.
Other than she's just so enthralled with He-Man that she's going to go wherever the heck he says.
He-Man is everything that she could have dreamed of. The ultimate warrior, it's
she's just a character. And what's so sad is, like, in Revelation, I actually like Teela. In Filmation, I like Teela. This version of Teela makes me hate her so much that I just can't stand the character at all in any form or fashion because of this series. Because it's either she's just goo-goo over He-Man, or she's crapping on Adam. That's the only thing. That's the only two things that she does. And it's just, it's terrible. So anyways.
Interesting.
So they go off.
There's definitely an episode coming up that I cannot wait to get to.
Okay.
So
they run off to do whatever, and they start finding, Skeletor and the evil warriors kind of doing some things. And
it's the opposite. Remember, the gargoyles on the way back report that there's a dude with a green cat heading up to the Mystic Mountains.
Correct.
So it's actually Skeletor again here. Like, He-Man and Teela are just running in. They're like, we got to stop this. We got to go talk to him. Stop this misinformation. He's actually got the upper hand, like, this whole episode. He's manipulating the two parties against each other. He's intercepting King Randor's messages. He's attacking He-Man to try and stop him from getting there. He's going after the Ambrosia. Like, Skeletor is just doing what he wants, and no one can stop him at this point.
And you know, if you talk about kind of rehashing the same thing over and over again, we're starting to get into this thing now where it's like you're fighting somebody that you think is something, but then they turn out to be something else. So you're fighting Keldor, it turns out to be Skeletor. You're fighting this He-Man, and it turns out to be a robot. You're fighting these evil warriors, they turn them up to be training robots. You're fighting Buzz-Off's fighting Stratos and his guys, but it turns out they're gargoyles. And Stratos is fighting these things that he thinks is Buzz-Off and his people, they're gargoyles. You know, it's like this same kind of, you know, we're going to put an enemy out in front of you that's not really the enemy you think it is, that has been, you know, we're only in episode 5, and really the first 3 are kind of one episode. So this is really like 3 stories. And in all 3 stories, you have this where you're fighting somebody that is not who you really think that you're fighting. It's like, okay, are they going to do this for the next, you know, 35 episodes? Like, is this going to continue to be a thing? So that's another frustrating part, but go ahead.
Fair enough. No, I love, so we get to see, you know, He-Man and Teela, they're taking the Battlehawks out for the first time. Battle Cat's on with them. I love the sequence. Like, there's not much to say about it because it's all just aerial maneuvers, but I love it with, we see the Evil Warriors with their pterodactyl jet vehicles for the first time too.
Which look surprisingly like Laserbeast from Transformers. Or Laserbeak from
the cassette tape?
The cassette tape.
I could see
pterodactyl. Yeah. They look very similar to that, but go ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great sequence, and again, the Evil Warriors win. They don't defeat them, but they knock them out of the sky, which, considering they're going to stop a sky war, is pretty substantial. That now they're stuck riding Battle Cat. We get to see the Eyes of Cain again,
together with her on the back and they're, you know, we're starting to see this connection between the two of them, which leads me to my next rant, which is why is if Adam as He-Man starts to see that Teela is so, whether it's attracted to or just has this bond with He-Man, why doesn't he at least use that relationship to explain Adam's disappearances? That, hey, just so you know, the reason I appeared the first time is because Adam came to got me. He reached out to the sorceress and she sent for help. Or, you know, this last time that Adam was gone, he was doing this or that. You don't have to lie, because Adam did go to get the power of He-Man. Adam, you know, you can tell truths in a way that don't give away the secret identity, but lend some credibility to Adam's character in her eyes. But even I was just mad earlier that Man-at-Arms wasn't sticking up for Adam.
Right.
Even Adam doesn't stick up for Adam. So
I'm curious now how you got me thinking. Obviously, I'm not, as we're rewatching, this is it. Like, I'm not going ahead. The next episode started and I turned it right off.
Same.
So now I'm curious to see if this becomes a thing, because that was definitely a Filmation. You know, where's Adam? Oh, he's safe. Don't worry, I helped her. You know, even well, He-Man, how'd you know we were here? Well, Adam got me. Like, that was a thing.
He would play that off. And
so I want to say it's gonna be a thing, but now I legitimately can't. Like, I can't say for sure at this point that it is. Interesting.
Yeah, nobody's sticking up for Adam, even Adam.
He's committed. Hey, after the courage of Adam, he knows He-Man is needed. He's got to commit to this. So he's setting up these dual identities. So
then we've got, you know, Buzz-Off and Stratos squaring off, and their whole faction just getting ready to fight each other because they think that they've been doing these, you know, sneak attacks on one another. And meanwhile, Skeletor eats Super Honey.
He waltzes right in, kills a bee guard, and
makes you amazing. And all of a sudden, you're more powerful than even He-Man, with the power of the Council of Elders and the power of Grayskull and everything. Super Honey makes you more powerful than you can get from Grayskull.
Yes.
Super Honey.
I do love the fact that the Skeletor turns into the Battle Sound Skeletor action figure. That's the armor that he's wearing, and the one where you do the power punch, and he would say, he said, Eternia will be mine. Actually voiced by Alan Oppenheimer for the toy.
Triclops and Evelyn have that same kind of armor on them as well.
They just never got a toy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting because for the toy,
it's a new design, and I think it's cool.
It suits him. It's really cool. Yeah, I agree. I was just going to talk for the toys. It was just interesting that they went back and got Alan Oppenheimer to do it for the toy instead of asking Brian Dobson to do it. It was doing the animated series. So, and then for the He-Man Battle Sound figure, they actually released 2 versions. One was John Irwin and one was Cam Clark. So there's the silver version that's out there is John Irwin, and then the gold armored version is Cam Clark that are out there.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, so in He-Man finally gets there. He's going to stop the Sky War. And I love how again we're into this still early stage He-Man, where like they can't get up there because they don't have their vehicles anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, I'm just going to throw a giant rock to get their attention. Really?
Yeah, like these
throwing a stone at a window.
Yeah, these two are like right on the verge of having an all-out war. Mm-hmm. And yeah, his idea is that I'm just going to throw a boulder up towards them. Because it's like imagine like 2 forces standing off against one another, and everybody's got like their finger on the trigger. And
I got these giant warships and everything. Like, it's about to go down.
I mean, what is if all of a sudden you get a boulder shoved at you? Like, what if they just start shooting at one another? What if they just start killing one another because they don't know where that came from? They don't know if it was the other side or whatever. Like, it's pretty interesting idea to just throw a boulder at them.
We'll see that in a second. But yeah, I love that. It's like you're looking at a 10-story office building and you're like, I need to get that guy up in the top office, and you just start throwing rocks at his window.
But before he can throw the boulder, he gets like just blasted by Skeletor.
Yep. We see the new armor. Skeletor's able to overpower He-Man. Evelyn easily overpowers Teela, and Triclops takes on Battle Cat and is giving the big old cat a run for his money.
Yep.
Pretty interesting pairing.
And then you kind of mentioned it earlier that He-Man kind of outsmarts Skeletor. He makes him use up his power.
He goads him.
He goads him to use up his power so that it goes away quicker, which is interesting because once again, we haven't heard anything that by transforming to He-Man, he somehow has imparted a bunch of wisdom, like knowledge that he knows these things. So as far as we know, he's still that 16-year-old kid, and somehow that 16-year-old kid knows more about Super Honey than
has read a lot of books in the Palace
than
Library.
Skeletor does. So I mean, we've talked about up until this point that Skeletor couldn't compete with He-Man physically, so he had to outsmart him. He had to know more than him. He had to use everything around him. And in this instance, Skeletor makes a vital mistake. It doesn't think through it or doesn't know all the things that are associated with this Super Honey, but this 16-year-old kid does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Book learning. He's been raised his whole life in the Palace Library. Skeletor's been stuck behind the Mystic Wall.
All right.
So maybe they could have done a little bit better job of...
They don't explain how He-Man knows this at all.
No, you just have to assume that Adam learned it at some point. I think probably to your point, they could have done a better job if like say Beastman had delivered the information about the ambrosia to Skeletor. Like Skeletor's like, oh, these andrenids, like, and they have, I could use this to my advantage, but what for? And then Beastman's like, well, my animals told me that like they have this ambrosia stuff. And then so Skeletor's getting bad information. If we saw Skeletor getting the bad information, then maybe this is more palatable to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
It wasn't.
And then, the end of the episode.
Hang on. I can't believe you didn't. Here's my big vent.
I'm all for
the
it. Go ahead.
And I have one more thing about the ambrosia too. I'll start with the ambrosia, then I'll get to the vent. So you brought up earlier, like, why don't all these bees use this ambrosia? I think they do.
No, I knew that they did. It's just, why doesn't it make them so super powered that they're just like unstoppable?
See, I think so. If you're amplifying your power by 10 with this ambrosia, Skeletor is already a 10, so that makes him 100.
Okay.
If these bees are 1 times 10, that's making them.
So you think without the ambrosia, these bees are like nothing?
Nothing. They'd be these weak little insectoid creatures, because we see one of them eat it and he gets taller and he gets the spikes just like Stingrad already has. So I think this is their life source. But for them, that's taking them from commoner to master status. Whereas Skeletor's already up there, so it's amplifying him up further. So
I can buy that.
And I think because there's those little guards, those little roly-poly, more bee-like bumblebee ones. I think those are ones that haven't eaten the ambrosia. Or maybe don't eat as much, so there's kind of like a hierarchy, which we see in colonies and hives. So it works. Now my vent. We are in episode 5 out of a 39 episode series. In episode 5, Skeletor has broken into the ambrosia warehouse, turns to Triclops and says, "Load it up in the collector." And for the next 34 episodes, we never see a badass, updated Mike Young 2000X collector.
It's a good point. I didn't even. Well, one, I wasn't thinking ahead, so yeah.
Oh, sorry. Right. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler
but we
alert,
will never see the collector that they teased us with. One of my favorite Skeletor vehicles ever. They tease us in episode 5, and disappointed enough watching it day and date that we didn't see it then, but I'm like, surely it's coming. We've had Sky Sleds. We'll get into Wind Raiders.
And don't call me Shirley.
It's exactly. I'm like, oh, what up? How can you do that? How can you reference it this early on and never actually follow through?
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but you're right. That's a bad one too. But at the end, Buzz-Off and Stratos kind of, make up. They realized that they weren't the ones fighting each other. It was Skeletor. Buzz-Off kind of, rethinks his position and thinks maybe Alliance isn't so bad, and agrees to kind of work with them. Everything's good. Everybody's happy. And then at the very end of the episode, Teela's got to throw one more cheap shot at Adam. Like, you can't end the episode without her she throws out one more zinger at him. Yeah. And just a perfect way to end this episode. So, yeah. There you go.
I did forget to mention the last episode and now this one. But we'll definitely make it the same thing from now on. On Amazon, or if you have the DVDs, they do have the moral segments at the end.
Oh, I did not see that.
No.
Do you have to go through the credits?
No, it was before the credits. It was right after the tag, and then This one was it was Stratos talking about teamwork, and then he goes to help the Andrenids lift the Ambrosia.
I did not see that.
Huh.
I'm gonna have to go back.
Yeah.
The last thing I saw in the episode was her making her crappy comment.
Yeah, no, it was right there for me. I watched it on Prime, so here it is. The moral: Stratos says sometimes it's important to be a team player. When people work together, they can accomplish great things. Until next time. So the moral segments are interesting because when they first aired on
You are
prime
right.
time,
I saw it fade to black after Tila's crappy comment, and I turned it off. And yeah, you're right. There's another part on there, so I missed it. I'm sorry.
Yep. So the beginning doesn't have any moral segments because it had, when it was aired as individual episodes, it would have the next time on and it show clips from the forthcoming episode. But starting with The Courage of Adam, they made moral segments for all of them, but in the prime time original airing on Toonami, they did not air any of the moral segments. It wasn't until they started rerunning them on Saturday mornings, then they started airing the moral segments on Cartoon
So
Network.
they were recorded at the time. It wasn't something they added in later.
No, Mike Young made them.
Okay.
But Cartoon Network cut them from the initial airing. Whenever they would show them during their prime time block, they wouldn't show them. Whenever they would show them in the mornings, I know they were on Saturday mornings for a while. I think Cartoon Network even reran the series weekday mornings for a while. They were always with that, and they're on the DVDs, and they're on Amazon Prime. They're just not good enough for primetime Cartoon Network.
And see, I don't even remember them from my first watching of MYP. So I wonder if I've always skipped them. I'm definitely going to pay attention now, though. So thank you.
No problem. So that takes us to our Power Sword ranking. For those of you just tuning in, still weird. You're starting with episode 5. Go back and watch episode 1. So we got 3 Power Swords. Very best episode. Nothing wrong. Perfect. I'm sure this is where Chris will land this time. 2 Power Swords, an above average episode. Very good. 1 Power Sword, solid episode. Good. Then we got the Cosmic Enforcer. That's right down the middle. Neither good nor bad. We got Havoc Staffs. 1 is bad. 2 is worse. 3 just should be banished to Despondos for all eternity. I am going to go first this time. And I give this one a solid 1 Power Sword. I think this did a great job. I mean, I'm definitely nostalgic to it to a degree. Again, the first payoff of a throwaway line in Courage of Adam paying off in this whole episode. Watching again today, loving the action sequences. I really don't mind the twist at the end with He-Man knowing it was toxic and getting Skeletor to expend it. I thought that was clever. So yeah, I thought this was a fun episode, solid, and I think I gave the beginning a 1 throughout. I think this follows right up there, and it shows us that there's going to be some stakes to the series. There's going to be some overarching stories, and I really enjoyed the He-Man Tila stuff. So, Curtis.
All right. I enjoyed the starting part with Buzz Off and Stratos, and not kind of seeing eye to eye. I also enjoyed the end where because of that whole story and how it worked, that they came back together. That's the only good thing that I like about this episode is that beginning and end. Everything in the middle was absolute garbage. I wish that I hadn't seen it, and I would like to burn my eyes and ears for having seen and listened to this episode. I'm giving it 2 Havoc Staffs, and I would give it a 3rd if it wasn't for the Buzz Off Stratos relationship that kind of developed through this. If it wasn't for that, this would be getting 3 Havoc Staffs, and I would say don't ever watch it, but that's the only thing that I would watch it for. So,
wow.
2 Havoc Staffs.
I thought you were going to be between a Cosmic Enforcer and a single Havoc Staff.
No.
But this is just...
No, it was bad. It was, just the constant, mental anguish that they're giving Adam. The fact that Skeletor got outsmarted by a 16-year-old. The fact that Tila ran off without, she's supposed to be like this important person within their military, basically. And for her to go off without telling anybody makes absolutely no sense. And then the, kind of the rehashing of this, fighting villain or fighting enemies that aren't the enemies that you think they are, that has been a reoccurring thing over the last few episodes. Like all of it is just bad and wore on me. So yeah,
so
it's not a good episode, folks.
I know
recommend.
I know this episode's already gone a bit longer than we like to keep these ones, but I gotta point out just the fact that Filmation Tila was very adamant, or very, very known for running off without telling anybody. So that didn't bother me as much as it bothers you. But I'm curious, when you're back, watching this series for the first time, this episode comes on, what is it that makes you go on to the next? Is there a part of you that you can remember that maybe thought, like, maybe this series isn't going to be for me? Like, was it that big of a deterrent back then? Or is this something, as time has gone on, this episode has become worse?
I think the thing that has at this point, watching it now, I'm watching it because we agreed to watch it and do these reviews. But the first time, I think the thing that really sold me on it is the animation. I mean, keep in mind that we didn't have Revolution or Revelation yet. New Adventures was just absolute garbage. So the updated designs of these characters, and even for the most part, the casting of the voice actors is so good that I'm having some difficulties with some of the personalities and story elements, but the animation and voices are so good that I've got to keep watching.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's it for Skywar. Stay tuned. Next time we are going into the deep end.
Maybe it gets better.
We're gonna find out together. So until next time, guys, if someone send Curtis some love.
Oh, come on.